Who did you give your children's outgrown clothes to recently? Dr. Fanny asked, his voice calm but firm. Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Hstory Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Inky was married to Chief Amadi, a wealthy and influential Igbo businessman. Their life was a picture of luxury and comfort. They lived in a sprawling mansion in Lagos, complete with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and everything money could buy. Hnigerianfolitales, with her grace and poise, was the heart of their home, a devoted wife and mother to their 3 beautiful children. Though life had blessed Hnigerianfolitales with wealth and privilege, she never forgot her humble beginnings in her village. Every Christmas, Chief Amadi insisted that they visit the village to reconnect with family and the community. This tradition reminded them of their roots and the values that shaped their lives. That Christmas, as usual, the Amadis packed their luxury SUVs with gifts and foodstuff and made their way to the village. The house was abuzz with activity as they handed out gifts to relatives and neighbors. One afternoon, Hnigerianfolitales decided to take a walk to the village market, where she ran into her former colleague from when they were still single, Uchi. Uchi's appearance shocked Hnigerianfolitales. Once vibrant and full of life, Uchi now looked tired and frail. Her clothes were worn, and her sandals were falling apart. She carried a small basket of vegetables she hoped to sell for a few naira. Andy, is it really you? Uchi's face lit up despite her weary look. Uchi, Hnigerianfolitales exclaimed, hugging her tightly. It's been so long. How are you? Uchi hesitated before answering, her eyes welling with tears. Hnigerianfolitales, life has not been kind. My husband has no work, and we can barely feed our children. Every day is a struggle. Hnigerianfolitales' heart broke. She couldn't bear to see her friend in such a state. Uchi, come to my house tomorrow, she said firmly. I will do something to help you. The next day, Uchi arrived at the Amadi family's grand village home, a stark contrast to her own. Hnigerianfolitales welcomed her warmly and led her to a seat. I cannot solve all your problems today, Hnigerianfolitales said gently, but I can help you get back on your feet. She went to her children's room and carefully packed their outgrown clothes and shoes. She added bags of rice, oil, and other foodstuff. Finally, she placed a generous sum of money in an envelope and handed everything to Uchi. Take these for now, Hnigerianfolitales said. When we get back to Lagos, I will speak to my husband. We'll find work for you and your husband. Uchi was overwhelmed. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Hnigerianfolitales, thank you. May God bless you and your family. Hnigerianfolitales smiled and helped her up. No need to thank me. That's what friends are for. As Uchi walked home with the gifts, a storm of emotions brewed in her heart. At first, she felt gratitude. But the closer she got to her small, crumbling house, the more envy began to take over. She looked at the clothes, shoes, and money in her hands and thought of Hnigerianfolitales' mansion, her fine clothes, and her children who lacked for nothing. Why does Hnigerianfolitales have everything while I have nothing? She thought bitterly. We worked together, and I was even earning more than her back then. But look at where she is, and look at me. When she reached her house, her children ran out to greet her. Their excitement over the gifts should have warmed her heart, but instead, it made her anger grow. She thought of how Hnigerianfolitales' children must have new clothes every month while hers wore hand-me-downs from strangers. Her husband, Izu, returned home later that night, his face tired and defeated. I couldn't find any work today, he said, collapsing into a wooden chair. Uchi stared at him, her anger boiling. Do you know Hnigerianfolitales gave me these things as if I'm a beggar? She lives in a palace while we live in this shack. And I was even helping her back then at work? Izu sighed. Uchi, be grateful. At least she's helping us. But Uchi couldn't let it go. The next day, she shared her frustration with her neighbor, Is, a woman known for her sharp tongue and daring ideas. Then I think she's better than you, Is said, fanning the flames of jealousy. Do you think she gave you those things out of kindness? She wants to show off her wealth and make you feel small. Uchi's anger turned into resentment. I won't let her look down on me, she said. I'll show her. Is had an idea. There's a native doctor on the outskirts of the village. He can change fortunes. Take these clothes and money to him. He'll use them to bring Ianai's family down. Uchi hesitated. Isn't that too much? Too much. Ys scoffed. She gave you scraps and made you feel grateful. Don't you want your children to have a better life? Uchi thought about it. She remembered Ianai's luxurious house, her perfect family, and her promises to help, promises that felt more like pity. Slowly, her bitterness overtook her better judgment. The next morning, Uchi packed the clothes, shoes, and money and made her way to the native doctor. His house was hidden among trees, eerie and quiet. The smell of burning herbs filled the air. What do you want? The native doctor asked. I want to bring down the family who gave me these things, Uchi said, her voice trembling with anger. I want their children to suffer and their wealth to vanish, the native doctor said, studying her for a moment. Are you ready to pay the price? Yes, Uchi replied, her bitterness drowning out her fear. The native doctor examined the pile of clothes carefully, his sharp eyes narrowing as he turned over a small pair of shoes in his hands. He looked up at Uchi, his voice low and deliberate. These clothes, he said, carry the essence of the children who wore them before. Because they belonged to Ianai's children, the curse will target anyone who has worn them, starting with the family who first owned them. Their connection to the clothes is strong, and the spell will take hold of their health and fortune. Uchi's heart raced as the implications sank in. You mean the sickness will affect Ianai's children? The native doctor nodded solemnly. Yes. Because these were their clothes first, the bond is tied to their energy. The curse will bring sickness to the children who wore these garments, and it will not stop until their parents are brought to ruin. He spread the clothes across a wooden table, sprinkling them with a dark powder made of crushed herbs and ashes. As he muttered incantations, his voice rose and fell, creating a rhythm that seemed to fill the room with an oppressive weight. These garments will carry your will, he said, his voice deep and commanding. Those who have worn them, the ones who originally owned them, will feel their vitality slip away. They will grow weak, and no medicine will heal them. Their parents will empty their coffers searching for cures that will never work. Their wealth will vanish, and their happiness will crumble. Uchi stared at the pile of clothes, a mix of fear and anger in her heart. She imagined Ianai's beautiful, healthy children falling ill and their lavish life slowly falling apart. Her bitterness drowned out her unease. Do it, she said, her voice trembling. I want them to suffer for thinking they could control me with their scraps. The native doctor continued his work, tying the clothes into a bundle with black and red threads. He held the bundle over a small fire, chanting louder now. The flames danced wildly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. It is done, he declared. The curse is tied to these clothes. The sickness will find those who have worn them, and their family's wealth will bleed away like water through their fingers. They will suffer as long as their pride keeps them blind. Uchi felt a strange thrill of power as she watched the fire consume the final threads of the bundle. The thought of Ianai's perfect life unraveling brought her a twisted satisfaction. But deep in her heart, a tiny voice whispered doubt, a voice she quickly silenced as she turned to leave the native doctor's hut. 1 week after they returned to Lagos, the curse began subtly, creeping into Ianai's life like an unseen storm. At first, it was small things, her children feeling unusually tired or catching minor colds that lingered longer than expected. Ianai thought little of it. After all, children fell sick from time to time, and with Lagos's busy life, she chalked it up to stress and weather changes. But the illnesses grew worse. Her youngest child, Buchi, was the first to show alarming symptoms. Buchi, who had been a lively 3-year-old, started losing her appetite. Her once round cheeks became sunken, her energy drained. She could barely play with her siblings, and her laughter, once a constant melody in the house, was replaced by faint cries of discomfort. Ianai grew worried and took Buchi to the family doctor, who ran several tests. Nothing serious, the doctor assured her. Maybe it's just a virus. She'll recover soon. But Buchi didn't recover. Instead, her condition worsened. She developed a persistent fever, and her body became frail. Nights became a nightmare as Ianai and Chief Amadi took turns monitoring Buchi, who frequently woke up crying from pain they couldn't identify. Soon, the other two children, Kenna and Oba, began showing similar symptoms. Once robust and healthy, they started losing weight rapidly. Their once bright eyes were now dull, and they were plagued by constant fatigue. Kenna developed mysterious rashes on her skin that no cream could soothe, while Oba complained of severe headaches that left him wailing in agony. Desperate, Eni and Chief Amadi visited some of the best hospitals in Lagos, running every test the doctors could suggest. The children were poked and prodded, scanned and observed. But the results were always the same. Nothing seems to be medically wrong, one specialist finally admitted, his voice tinged with confusion. They appear healthy on paper, but their symptoms tell another story. Perhaps you should consult another hospital. The lack of answers gnawed at Eni's spirit. She couldn't sleep at night, listening to her children's labored breathing. Chief Amadi, usually calm and composed, was beginning to unravel. His frustration over the mystery of their children's sickness mixed with the growing pressure from his struggling businesses. While Eni battled her children's declining health, Chief Amadi was fighting another war. His once thriving businesses began to crumble. Contracts he had secured for years were suddenly cancelled without warning. Explanation: longtime clients pulled out of deals, claiming uncertainty or competition from rivals. One of his factories suffered a sudden fire, resulting in millions of naira in damages. "We'll recover," Chief Amadi reassured Eni, but even he didn't believe it. His bank accounts, which had always been full, were draining quickly as he poured money into finding solutions for his children's mysterious illnesses and trying to keep his businesses afloat. Bills began to pile up: hospital bills, repair costs, and unpaid debts. For the first time in their marriage, Eni and Chief Amadi sat at their dining table late at night, discussing the possibility of selling some of their assets. "We have to save the children," Eni said tearfully. "I'll sell my jewelry if I have to." Chief Amadi shook his head. "We'll get through this. We just need to stay strong." The breaking point came one fateful night when Buchi's condition worsened. Her breathing grew shallow, her body burning with fever despite the medications. Eni cradled her baby in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably as Chief Amadi frantically called their driver to rush them to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctors tried everything: oxygen masks, for drips, and emergency medication, but Buchi's little body continued to weaken. Eni knelt in the corner of the room, praying desperately. "God, please save my children. Whatever it is, take it away," she cried, her voice hoarse from sobbing. As dawn broke, Buchi stabilized, but her frailty left the doctors gravely concerned. "We've done all we can," the doctor told Eni and Chief Amadi. "You might want to consider taking her abroad for specialized treatment." One day, during a routine checkup with Dr. Afani, a devout and compassionate physician who usually came to the hospital by appointment once every 3 months, he asked Eni an unusual question. "Who have you helped recently?" Dr. Afani asked, his voice calm but firm. Eni stared at Dr. Afani, confused by his question. "Who have I helped recently?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Dr. Afani said, his gaze unwavering. "Have you given away any personal items, money, clothes, or anything that belonged to your family?" Eni hesitated, her mind racing. Then she remembered the trip to the village, the clothes, shoes, and money she had given to Uchi. Her heart sank as the realization struck. "I gave some of my children's outgrown clothes and shoes to my former colleague in the village," she said slowly. "I also gave her some foodstuffs and money." Dr. Afani leaned back in his chair, his expression somber. "Those clothes were taken to a dark altar," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "Someone used them to curse your family. That's why your children are sick and your husband's business is failing." Eni's heart pounded in her chest. "Uchi," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why would she do this?" Dr. Afani sighed deeply. "Sometimes envy can drive even the closest of friends to terrible acts. But this is not the end, Eni. God is still on your side. The battle is His, not yours." Dr. Afani led Eni into his office and began to pray fervently for her and her daughter. His voice was strong, filled with conviction, as he rebuked the curse placed on her family. Every evil plan against this family is broken in the name of Jesus, he declared, beads of sweat forming on his forehead as he prayed. After the prayer, he handed Hnigerianfolitales a piece of paper with several Bible verses written on it. Pray these psalms at midnight for the next 7 days, he instructed. God will fight for you, and he will reveal the truth. Hnigerianfolitales clutched the paper tightly, nodding through her tears. Thank you, doctor. I will do as you say. When Hnigerianfolitales returned home, she told Chief Amadi everything. His face turned pale as he listened, and he muttered, "Blood of Jesus," repeatedly, pacing the room in disbelief. That woman, Uchi, he exclaimed, shaking his head. How could she do this to us? But there was no time for anger. That night, Hnigerianfolitales gathered her family, and they knelt together in their living room. The atmosphere was heavy with emotion as they prayed fervently, crying out to God for deliverance. For the first time in weeks, Hnigerianfolitales felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few days, Hnigerianfolitales followed Dr. Afani's instructions, praying the Psalms every midnight. With each prayer, she felt a weight lifting from her heart. Slowly, the changes began. Uchi's fever subsided, and she started eating again. Kenna's rashes began to fade, and Oba's headaches became less frequent. Chief Amadi's business also showed signs of recovery. A major client who had pulled out of a deal suddenly returned, offering an even better contract. The family's finances, though still strained, began to stabilize. Hnigerianfolitales felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, but she couldn't shake the thought of Uchi and the betrayal that had nearly destroyed her family lingered in Hnigerianfolitales' mind. Meanwhile, in the village, Uchi's life was unraveling. Her youngest child fell gravely ill with symptoms eerily similar to those Hnigerianfolitales' children had experienced. No herbal remedy or medicine seemed to help. At first, Uchi thought it was a coincidence, but when her husband's small farming business suffered an unexpected fire, she began to panic. Desperate for answers, she returned to the native doctor. He greeted her with a knowing look. "The curse you placed has backfired," he said simply. "The family you tried to destroy is protected by a higher power. Now, the consequences are yours to bear." Uchi collapsed to her knees, wailing. "No, please. Reverse it. My child is innocent." The native doctor shook his head. "Once set in motion, curses like these cannot be undone. You sought to destroy an innocent family, and now the suffering has returned to you." Filled with guilt and despair, Uchi called Hnigerianfolitales one evening. Her voice trembled as she confessed everything: the jealousy that had consumed her, the trip to the native doctor, and the curse she had placed on Hnigerianfolitales' family. "I'm so sorry," Uchi wept. "I don't know what came over me. I was blinded by envy. Please forgive me." Hnigerianfolitales' hands shook as she held the phone. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of anger, sorrow, and relief. "Uchi," she said quietly, "I trusted you. I would have done anything to help you. Why did you do this?" "I was bitter," Uchi admitted, sobbing. "I saw your life, your children, your wealth, and I hated what I didn't have." Hnigerianfolitales closed her eyes, her heart heavy. "I forgive you," she said after a long pause, "but I can't forget this. Our friendship is over." As Hnigerianfolitales and her family healed, their faith grew stronger. They continued to pray together, grateful for the second chance they had been given. The children regained their strength, and Chief Amadi's business flourished once more. Uchi, however, was left to face the consequences of her actions. Her child's health worsened, and her family sank deeper into poverty. She was haunted by regret, realizing too late that envy had cost her everything. Please be prayerful and watchful during this festive season. Give, but pray over any item before you give it out. May God bless and protect you. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.